Good afternoon, members, officers and any other members of the public in the public gallery or anyone viewing on the live stream. Welcome to this meeting of the Scrutiny and Overview Committee. My name is Councillor Graham Cone and I'm chairing this meeting. My Vice Chair is Councillor Stephen Drew, sitting to my right. I will introduce other attendees when I invite them to speak. Committee members, may I remind you that you should have before you the main agenda and supplement to items 4 and 6 on the agenda. Those in the chamber are reminded that the meeting is being live streamed. The normal procedure at Scrutiny and Overview committee meetings is to review and make recommendations to Cabinet by affirmation. Only those members of the committee present in the chamber will be able to move and second motions or affirm. However, members present virtually may speak in the debate. May I ask those who are joining us remotely to ensure that their cameras and microphones remain off unless they are addressing the committee. For those of us present in the room, please ensure your microphone is close to you. Speak clearly when addressing and speak clearly when addressing the room. Finally, a report of this meeting will be presented to Cabinet on the 25th of March. Neither the Vice Chair nor I will be in attendance at the meeting, so is any other member of this committee able to attend on our behalf? Councillor Bradnam.
I think I'm free to attend, if that's helpful.
Thank you very much. That is helpful, and we'll make a note of that. Thank you. So, if we move on to the agenda, I don't think I have no announcements, so I don't know if we have any apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. Just one apology for absence from Councillor Paul Bearpark.
Lovely, thank you for that. We'll then move on to item 3, which is declarations of interest. Does anybody have any declarations of interest? Councillor Hobron.
Thank you, Chair. So, through this council, I'm a non-executive director of Ermine Street Housing, and this will be so a report from Ermine Street will be scrutinised in item 8. So I propose that I'll leave the meeting after item 7.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any other declarations of interest? No, if they become apparent during the meeting, just let us know. So we'll move on to minutes of the previous meeting, pages 5 to 10. Are we happy that they are an accurate reflection of what was said in that meeting? Councillor Rippeth.
I just need to say I'll abstain from any vote on that because I wasn't here.
Thank you, Councillor Rippeth. Anybody else? No. Okay, so we'll move on to item 5. We haven't had any public questions, so we'll move on to item 6, which is the core. Sorry, yeah, Councillor Brad.
I just wanted to draw to our attention that in the minutes of the last meeting, we asked for some items to come forward to the next meeting or to a future meeting. This was at page 7 in the 3rd paragraph down, which was Councillor Warren Green undertook to update Scrutiny and Overview Committee members in relation to blue bin recycling contracts. I just wanted to check that that had happened.
Yes.
Or was due to.
Yes, it has. Yeah.
And the other one at the bottom of the page, 2nd paragraph up from the bottom, was undertook to provide a written response outlining what percentage of the total budget was represented by expenditure on analysis, consultancy and data review, and how those items related to each other. And I just wanted to check that had been received. I don't recall receiving that, but
I don't recall receiving that. I'll follow that up. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Bradman. Lovely. Okay, so we'll move on to the item 6, which is the quarter 3 performance report, pages 11 to 52. Who would like to start on that? Councillor Stobart.
Thank you, Chair. So on page 23, and it's not the only place this particular comment point appears in the performance report. ES 142 kilograms of residual black bin waste per household. That's incidental. I mean, the comment underneath there is line chart not included for this performance indicator. Chart scale means result is indistinguishable from the target, but there is some scale at which it would be distinguishable. And if we were to plot, you know, small variations, we could always capture it in a graphic. So I think sometimes we are looking for small changes, trends up, trends down. We are looking for a trend that is continuous. I suppose you could argue that if we don't see much of a change over a long period, it's holding steady. But I think we should always see a graphic to understand the trend. So I'm not. I don't say anything as strong as I don't believe the comment is relevant here. But I would just like to either hear a justification or understand what it is we need to do to present that data at a much more, perhaps expanded resolution.
Okay, so a comment on sort of how we express that data. Councillor Batchelor, it's more of a comment than a question probably, but if you want a comment on that. Yeah. Sorry, it might be better for Councillor Warren Green to answer. I don't. Yeah, it's more on. Yeah, it's more about the aesthetics of the report. So either of you could answer it really, but it's more of a comment on, you know, taking on board how that data is presented. I think. Am I right in saying that, Councillor Stobart?
If you will, I believe that we can represent that graphically. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so you're suggesting that actually we should add some comments to represent the graphic more thoroughly?
Through you, Chair.
Please.
No, I'm saying that I believe we can do a graphic. I could take these numbers and we could plot.
Yeah. Shall I bring in Bode to speak? Bode,
Yeah, I think Bodie's
yeah.
online. I think he can speak to that. So I'm so sorry, I didn't quite catch the essence of the question.
That's okay.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Latili. Yes, we will take that on board and we'll work with the performance management team. I'm not sure if Kevin is online. If it means using a different scale graph, yes, we should be able to represent those numbers in a different graphic if we need to. Yes, so that's possible. Yes, I think it was just for simplicity that it wasn't included. I don't want to speak for Kevin, but we take on board Councillor Stobart's comments and we'll work with Kevin to produce the graphs in future.
Thank you for that, Councillor Stobart.
No, I appreciate the answer. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. Councillor Hobro first, and then we'll come to Councillor Earl.
Thank you. I had a number of questions actually, so I might ask a couple of them and then give others a chance to speak before I come with the rest. I first wanted to comment that this report sort of continues to show some really promising medium-term trends. So I'd highlight FS112, FS113 on page 15, which is about housing benefit claim processing. Also FS117 on page 22, about monitoring staff turnover. ES430, 408 on page 23, about fly tipping, clearing and bin collection. And finally, CC 305 and 302 on page 25, about the complaints in the call centre. And these are all, I mean, these represent a wide range of services that we're providing. But in all of these cases, we're seeing a really steady improvement in those services over the last 2 to 3 years. And so I just wanted to highlight that and really say thank you to the officers who've delivered those improvements. And you know, we need to keep watching these things, but it's really heartening to see that kind of improvement over that time scale. Excuse me. That was my first comment. So the second comment I'd like to make is really following up on Councillor Stobart's response. So the indicator that he mentioned, which is ES412, is not the one that I'd noticed, but I've seen a similar issue with one on page 20, AH211. And this is it's another indicator where we see fluctuations. I'm sorry, no, it's not that one. Let me get the right indicator. I apologise. Where we see fluctuations on a seasonal basis, but actually what we want to see in the indicator is the long-term trend. We want to pick out the long-term trend. I'm afraid I've lost the indicator I was talking about. But the point that I'm making is that okay, I've got it now. It's ES418 on page 24, which is the percentage of household waste sent for reuse, recycling and composting. And what we see mostly in that indicator is the fluctuations across the seasons, which is what we might expect to see in the household waste recycling, because the big effect here is how much garden waste is going into the green bins. It seems to me that what we want to see in this indicator is the long-term trend, and it's harder to see that. And it might actually be more helpful if we had this presented in a way that shows us the long-term trend and doesn't highlight the seasonal fluctuations. And I think this relates to Councillor Stobart's comment, because in the indicator he highlighted, we also want to see the long-term trend. We want to see whether or not we're achieving a gradual reduction over time in the overall amount of waste that we're having to manage. So I suppose my request here is about the way that these numbers are presented. And I appreciate that in the case of the overall waste numbers, we've only been monitoring this for a very short time, and so we can't see figures that go back, say, 5 years. I understand that. But I would hope that as we go ahead, perhaps where we do want to identify these longer term trends over, say, 3 to 5 years, we can see the data presented in a way that allows those trends to come forward and speak loud, rather than sort of being hidden somewhere in amongst the seasonal fluctuations. I hope that makes sense. Thank you.
Councillor Natalie Warren-Green.
I think what I'm understanding is it's a little bit more detail with it. So you've got the trend. You want longer term trends if we can get the data, but also within it what the fluctuations are and what the causes are of any issues. I'll let Bodie answer the question as to what can be improved on that, but that's what I understood.
Bodie?
Thank you, Chair. Certainly, we can show that, and we do have, in the case of ES418, we do have data that goes back to 5 years, so we can show that trend. Yes, so we can extend that graph. At the moment, it shows just 3 years, or maybe just under 4 years, from about 2021 to 2024 to date. So we can go backwards. Yes, we can take that on board. Can I just ask, because for this particular indicator, I'm not sure that a 5-year trend would add much more value. Maybe I'm missing something, because yeah, if I can just pose that question, just so we understand the fuller context.
Councillor Hobro.
So the reason for raising talking about the long-term trends is that I think these indicators represent something where we're seeking to achieve a long-term improvement. And it's an improvement that will involve quite a lot of indirect work. These are things that we don't have enormous direct influence over, but they're things that we have influence over indirectly, and where we might hope to achieve long-term improvements. And that's why I'm asking if perhaps we can have the long-term trends sort of speak more loudly in the reports.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yes, we can do that. Certainly, yes. Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Do you want to come in on this? Councillor Bradham, do you want to come in on this point? Yeah.
Thank you very much, Chair. So whilst I hear what Councillor Hobro says, I'm not clear what you're suggesting would be additional to improve this, apart from more years. For me, this shows quite clearly the variation in the line, you know, of the actual versus the target, and it shows that the target has changed, and it shows over probably nearly 3 years, if not, you know, if not actually a full 3 years. And for me, this is indicative. It shows that we have actually, the target has got harder and we've improved accordingly. So I'm not quite sure what it is that, you know, I don't want to say, no, we shouldn't do it. I'm just trying to work out what it is that's going to be added, because this is very illustrative to me. Okay. And I'm very much a diagram person.
Yes, I'm happy to explain what I mean here. So what we see in this indicator is fluctuations up and down. The main thing that dominates here is the up and down across the seasons. And I think we know that happens, but that's not really what we're trying to look at. These numbers are changing very little over time. So we've hovered at around sort of 52% for the last 3 years. So if you look at the long-term trend over those 3 years, it's hard to see whether it's changed at all. It might slightly have increased overall, but what we see is the line going up and down every year. And my point is that part of the information isn't really very interesting for us. What we want to know is whether in the longer term we're achieving a gradual increase in that 52%, whether it's going up to 53, whether it's increasing by 1% every year. We'd like to see the percentage of waste being reused and recycled and composted increase. We want to know whether on a year-by-year basis it's gradually going up. And it's hard to decipher that by looking at this, fluctuating plot. Whereas if we had a figure, an average figure for 2024, an average figure for 2023, 2022, going back to say 2015, we might be able to discern a longer term trend.
So I think what we'll do is, I think the point has been well made.
Sorry, can I just come back on the point that Councillor Hobro
very briefly, because I think
that could be put into the table, could it not? The table by the side.
I think what we will do is, the point has been made, Bode has taken that on board, and we'll come back to the committee and see if we can reflect Councillor Hobro's vision of how we could best see those improvements, or not, as the case may be, over that time scale. And we'll work with Councillor Natalie Warren-Green on that basis. But I think that the point has been made. So, yeah. Okay. Libby Earl, please. Councillor Libby Earl.
Get my microphone on. Yes, there are two things, Chair. First one was the perennial performance indicator on the reletting of housing stock, which is on page 20, AH211. And this is really just seeking some reassurance that that target of 17 days, which we've consistently missed for a number of, well, forever, is actually going to be re-looked at, something perhaps which we can hit, but which is still ambitious. Because it just seems it's rather a pointless target to have something which we never ever achieve, and which even to a layperson thinking about reletting housing stock after a tenant's been in it for a number of years seems overly ambitious. And I know the reasons why we didn't, but we perhaps need to think about it.
Thank you for that. We'll take that point first. Councillor Batchelor.
Yeah, thanks very much. It's a regular one, of course. Hopefully you'll be reassured to know that we have reviewed the target, and as we have with a number of other targets as well. And the plan is to introduce a number of new targets in the new financial year. So they should be up and running for April.
Thank you for that.
That's good to hear. The second one, which is unrelated really, is page 29, looking at the business plan progress report. Down at the bottom, number 3, we'll work with partners to support economically inactive back into work. And there is a comment here, and it's mentioned several times, encouraging businesses to take up apprenticeship schemes, supporting partners with development and promotion of skills development services. And there's quite a lot about that, but what we never say is what the council does. And we have apprenticeships, and my strong feeling, Chair, is that we should be leading by example, and we should be publicising what we do, because it's much better that people do as I do, not as I say.
I absolutely agree. Councillor Warren Green, did you want to take
I'm happy to speak. We've also got Councillor Brian Mills online if we need more information. Yes, I agree with you. There is a lot of information about apprenticeships within the council. We do have a lot of apprentices and some really good success stories, and I think leading by example is a good idea. And I think we should take that away and look at that in terms of the data that's recorded to give some sort of insight into what we're doing ourselves.
Absolutely, and using our experience, Chair, as assistance to businesses, because some are not confident about taking on apprentices.
And I'll just add to that how we publicise that as well, whether that be through website, social media, the magazine, magazine. Anne Ainsworth, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to come in on this point because I completely agree, and those who know me know how passionate I am about apprenticeships and the opportunities that they offer. I just wanted to raise with members that on page 44 of the pack, where we talk about attracting, retaining and developing the best talent and ensuring we're an employer of choice, we do talk about our apprenticeship courses that the council has been offering and the completions of those courses as part of that, and we also talk about some of the other training. So there is reference in the document to activities that the council and colleagues are undertaking on apprenticeships, but the point is absolutely well made, and we will look to promote that further as well. Thank you.
Jeff Membry, did you want to come in on that point as well?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Just to make members aware that a report on what we're doing with apprentices went to Employment and Staffing Committee in February. That'll obviously be on the website, and we also ran a series of events for National Apprenticeship Week in February as well. So I'll see what we can do to perhaps publicise that a little bit better.
Thank you. That's very encouraging. I think that it would be excellent to put this out into a more proactive public domain. People look at websites; they're a bit like libraries. If you want to find something out, but we perhaps haven't made enough of it in our magazine, for example.
Thank you for that. I'll move on to Councillor Bradnam.
I was drawing your attention to the fact that Jeff Membry had offered to speak, but I wasn't.
Your hand seemed to be up at the point where Councillor Earl raised the thing for a question. Clearly I imagined it, Councillor Bradnam, my apologies.
That's right.
It's Councillor Rippeth next.
Lovely, Councillor Rippeth.
Looking at page 20, the target for tenants satisfied with responsive repairs. I just thought that I'd like to know a little bit more detail. I mean, I'm really appreciative of the comments. I think they help a lot. The factor about the winter, obviously, and boilers breaking, etc. However, this dip in satisfaction is not reflective of actual service delivery, which remains good, which is obviously talking about the tenants and how they feel how quickly things have been fixed in their properties. What is good? I'm not sure how long that is. For example, if a tenant's, I don't know, I'm just thinking of boiler breaks and it maybe needs to be replaced or fixed, how long would they have to wait for that to be dealt with, is my first point.
Thank you, Councillor Rippeth. Councillor Batchelor.
Yeah, thanks very much. I think we've got a couple more results to add to that. I'm not sure why the October and November is not being shown there, because it's actually in the comments, isn't it? 88 and 83. December was 84, and January was 93%. I mean, it does vary significantly, depending on what's going on. One of the issues is that there's a general thing of satisfaction going down nationally. It's a factor throughout the country at the moment, in that all these satisfaction measures are reducing. I think there's quite a number of reasons for that, you know, not least publicity, and we are also experiencing a significant number of claims being encouraged by, you know, no-cost solicitors. So they have to be taken into account as well.
Thank you, Councillor Batchelor. Councillor Rippeth.
So it wasn't quite my question. I understand that, and also in a way, it shows that people are actually responding, which is good, as opposed to just, oh, here's a survey you can fill in, nobody does. It was more like if a tenant is left cold, you know, freezing cold weather that we have had, and with no heating, maybe this is more of a detailed question rather than for you, Councillor Batchelor, about how long would it take, you know, in the normal run of things to be fixed. And also I wondered if we have any fan heaters which could be lent out, you know, in the meantime, to help keep people warm.
So commenting on the mitigation for that. Councillor Batchelor.
Yeah, thanks very much. I think Eddie is probably with us, who is
Eddie Spicer,
the expert
please
in this
come in.
area.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, just to comment on the question there. If we have a boiler failure, we would normally sort of take out fan heaters or some form of temporary heaters initially, so that there is some form of heat maintained, and we usually try to, depending on the type of boiler and fuel type, we normally aim to replace a boiler within sort of 4 to 5 days at the outside, really. So the response time on that is generally really good. It's only if there's complications, if it's an oil boiler and we need to replace the oil tank and that kind of thing, it may take a little bit longer, but that's where we kind of aim for, is sort of 4 to 5 days.
Thank you. Councillor Rippeth.
Sorry, thank you to both of you.
Lovely. Okay, so Councillor Bygott.
Chairman. So, Councillor Hobero's point, we did talk about this quite a bit. I did actually make the same point at the previous occasion that we looked at these indicators, and I'm willing to show the officers how to actually do that. I'm a professional statistician, and seasonal adjustment is actually a very simple thing, so I'm happy to volunteer to suggest how to do that.
Thank you for that.
Then on Councillor Rippeth's point about repair satisfaction and heating, are there any cases where somebody elderly or vulnerable has had their heating fail where it has not been classified as an emergency? And my second question on that is to do with, on the next page, with the indicator on mould. And my second question is, are there any cases where there were properties with mould where there were failures of heating that had not been rectified?
Okay. Councillor Batchelor, please.
well, I'm sure Eddie can help us on the operational elements of that. As far as the emergency, we do keep a record of vulnerable people, and they are given priority. It is a difficulty in that people don't like to be registered as vulnerable. So if you do have people in your areas who should be on the list, perhaps it would be helpful if you actually let officers know that, so that we can give the proper priority to vulnerable people. On the detail, I'll leave Eddie to do that. Okay. On the mould element, you will note that it's gone up considerably. Now, the target was based on our survey of all our housing, which indicated that the expectation would be that we could keep it around 1%. It's gone up over 4%, and this seems mostly to actually be being a much wider reporting to us. In the past, probably people wouldn't actually report the mould unless it was very serious. We now get all levels of mould being reported, even though they might be quite minor. And this is another area where solicitors are encouraging people to actually make claims for compensation, and that has some influence. But I'm sure Eddie can add some more detail to that.
Eddie, did you want to add anything else?
Yeah, just very quickly on the subject of the elderly and vulnerable. Obviously, it is a very tricky one, and what we won't do as a standard is ask when someone reports it, are you elderly, are you vulnerable? For the simple reason is if people know the system, everyone's going to say yes, just to get themselves a priority service. But we are embarking on a data update, which we will collect that kind of information a bit better and a bit more fuller as we move forward. But yeah, we are conscious that some will slip through the net, unfortunately.
Thank you. Councillor Bygott.
Do you mind if I ask an unrelated question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so on page 24, the indicator Sierra Foxtrot 786 Alpha, sickness days per FTE in the shed. It's clear from that graph that from the middle of the number 2024, there's a bit of an uptick there, and I note that reducing sickness and absence is one of the things that a 4-day week is one of the justifications, one of several justifications for a 4-day week, and I'm wondering really to what extent this increase in sickness could be related to that. So in the employment and staffing papers from February 2025, it mentioned that 17% of absences were due to musculoskeletal issues, and what I'm wondering really is that are there any cases where our employees have had extra strain in order to cope with the 4-day week, and could this have been a factor in some of those absences? Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Natalie Warren-Green.
I don't believe that there's any evidence to suggest that that's related. I'm going to ask Bodhi to speak to it because he's got the detail. But my understanding is the uptick is related more to the seasonal cold and flu, and with the skeletal issues, it's not as a result of the 4-day week, but I'll let Bodhi speak to the detail for that.
Bodhi, did you want to come in on that?
Thank you, Chair. I think just to add to that, absolutely. There is no evidence at all that any of this sickness is linked to the 4-day week. I would also just point out that some of the sickness data that's reported includes long-term sickness. That includes office-based colleagues who are not part of the professional crews, but also some colleagues who are long-term sick, waiting to have a medical intervention like a surgery. So they cannot come back to work, they're waiting for a surgery. So there's no evidence at all, data we have so far, that any of the sickness levels is directly linked to 4-day week.
Thank you. Councillor Bygott.
Thank you. So just a bit of a supplementary. So if we have long-term and short-term causes of illness, would it be a useful thing to do to separate out this indicator into long-term and short-term, and to use seasonal adjustment on the short-term? If colds and flus are a seasonal thing, then that would allow us to get a better handle on it.
Okay. Councillor Natalie Warren-Green.
I can see Bodie nodding, and I think that's very possible
Yes.
to pull that up, but I'll
Yes.
hand it over to him.
Yeah, with the support of our teams in HR, they collect the data, I believe, with that level of granular detail. So we have that level of information, I believe. We can check with them. So yes, it should be possible to separate these out and report them as such.
Lovely. Sounds like that recommendation has been taken on board. Did you have any other points?
No, that's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Lehman.
Thank you, Chair. I have 3 questions. The first one is back to the one about the black bins. That's ES412, and it's on page 23 of our report. I wanted to ask about this black bin waste going up at Christmas. Obviously, we know that happens, but I wondered whether the council had done any targeted campaigns about helping people reduce waste over Christmas, more sustainable Christmases, planning your food, making choices that actually reduce the amount of waste, through the Christmas period. Whether we'd actually done it or whether we would consider doing it, because it's obviously an outlier, and to an extent it's outside of our control. People will generate waste over Christmas, but I wondered whether we'd consider proactively helping people find ways to reduce their waste over Christmas.
Lovely. We'll take that first. I'll come to Councillor Natalie Warren-Green in the first instance, and then Rebecca's indicated to speak.
Yeah, I mean, and we're all aware that there was a degree of campaign around Christmas for waste and which bins to use for which waste, and so that as a starting block, if there's an improvement to be made, I'm sure Rebecca would be able to speak to that. But I am aware that campaign was out there, and it went out through our magazine, but also through social media. The fact that we still have a lot of waste at Christmas clearly means that there's room for improvement on that. So,
thank you. Rebecca.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I think Natalie said it really. So yes, we do make a proactive effort every Christmas actually to put out these messages and to try and turn the tide and educate people as much as possible. Particularly at Christmas, you're looking at extra packaging, aren't you? Extra food waste potentially. And so it's about reduction of those things, as well as telling people which bin they should be putting it into, recycle it correctly, but also importantly the reduction, because it's a prime opportunity in the year to get that message across. So we absolutely do that, schedule it every year proactively. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Rebecca. Councillor Leeming.
Thank you. Thanks for that response. I'm thinking it would be interesting to compare Christmas to Christmas and to see how effective those campaigns are. Thank you. That's my first question. My second one is back to the damp and mould cases on page 21, AH245. I can see that the percentage has gone up, and I completely, reading the narrative, it's clear that this is a complicated picture. It's partly to do with the weather, it's partly to do with our campaign to raise awareness, more people are reporting it, and it's also to do with how we're recording the KPI. So it makes a lot of sense to me that people's priority would be to go out and tackle the issue rather than to come back and check to tick a box to say it's been done. which is, you know, saying that the thing wouldn't close until someone had come back and said that it had been resolved. I think it's correct that the priority is to go out and tackle it in the first place. I'm wondering whether we could sort of have a breakdown of that, because I think the delay in people coming back to check on work is a different thing to someone coming out and actually fixing the problem. The two different things. Also, I wanted to understand a bit more about the first paragraph where it says, where affordability concerns are identified, we work with partners to help maximise household income. Now, in previous council meetings, we've spoken about the new Lift software, we've spoken about the work that officers have done to proactively help people claim all the benefits that they're entitled to and to manage their finances accordingly. I wondered whether it was that same network of people that people were being recommended to seek support with, or if it was some other partners. Thank you.
Councillor Batchelor, shall I come to you on this?
Right. Obviously, I'm not involved in the operational matters, but we do have a special team that deals with damp and mould and just that, and a discreet surveyor who does nothing else other than go and look at the damp and mould and make assessments and so on. I think the remedial work, because it's quite often very, very difficult to actually resolve these matters, because it's often about the structure of the building itself and whether it has proper ventilation and all these sorts of factors. But if I can bring Eddie in again, he will know the operational issues involved here.
Eddie Spicer.
Yeah, I'll tackle both bits. As far as working with partners for like income maximisation and that kind of thing, it is the Lift and the various network that we have there where we check and make sure that they're getting everything that they're entitled to and so on. So that's really good. And as far as the actual KPI and everything that's in there, we've been waiting for the final iteration from the government on the Arabs law, which is what this is all based on, which was released about a week or so ago, about 10 days ago, for going live as a legal act in October. So the KPI we've currently got is a very rudimentary to show our progress and what we're doing within that. Now that the final details have been released, we are looking at potentially amending slightly what we're reporting on and opening it up so it's a bit more a bit clearer in sort of our response times at different parts of the process, so how long it takes us to act and so on, because the regulations give us strict guidelines on how long we must before we attend, deal with certain emergencies in 24 hours, and those kind of things. So we will be amending that to fit the regulations so that it's a lot clearer on when things are acted upon, when the work's complete, and when we close the case, because we need to do follow-ups at various points at 6 weeks, 6 months, and so on. So it's at what point we close the case and call it closed. So yeah, you're quite right. It needs a bit more detail to actually sort of be able to show exactly where we are. But it is showing that the winter time is a lot worse, and our proactive work that we're doing, and the media and various TV programs and press releases on the subject create a spike in calls, and they could be anything from a black dot in your shower to an actual real structural problem. So it's certainly something that we're developing and working on as we go forward.
Councillor Lehman.
Thank you. I'm actually really pleased to hear that we've been proactive in trying to tackle this before the law comes in and we have to do it. And I think when the law comes in, I hope that will help us clarify you know, the reporting metric will help us clarify the different stages of work that are involved. But I'm pleased that we have begun. You know, we began before the law was passed because it's such an important issue, and I'm glad we're taking it seriously. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
My last question is actually just about these KPIs altogether. I know we're talking a lot about trends and the graphs. I'm guessing that a number of these KPIs will be changing. So the graphs of a continuum might not actually help us because we might not be measuring apples and apples anymore. I'm just wondering whether some of these will be legacy, you know, whether they'll continue into the new format under the corporate plan, and how many will change. Thank you.
Lovely. Do you want to comment on that at all, Natalie or Warren Green?
Just to say, yes, right. We will revise matters, you know, make it clearer and more useful.
Just accordingly. Yeah. Lovely. Okay. Councillor Howbray.
Thank you, Chair. I have a couple of questions. I wondered if would it be possible to follow up on Councillor Leaming's question in addition to my two questions? So to follow up to that, I wanted to say, I mean, I understand that we need to revise the KPIs every now and then, and this is, of course, it's important that we adjust what we're doing. But whenever we adjust, I'd suggest that it's important that we manage the transition successfully, so that with the new figure that we're looking at, we calculate it retrospectively so that we can understand the long-term changes from before we've adjusted, or potentially keep, if we can't do that, then continue the old figure and overlap for a while so that we can look at these medium-term trends and we don't lose data across the transition. So that was just my comment following up from...
I'm seeing lots of nodding, so I think that's been taken on board. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so my first question was about, so on page 20, and this is AH211, the average days to relet all housing stock. So I had several things to say about this. The first is that the scale is not very helpful because the trends that are in there are really very small on this scale, but I think I can just about see them. The second is that this has a very ambitious target, this KPI, and it's a target that we're struggling to meet. And I can see from the comments that our target of 17 is well below the top quartile figure of 39, the national top within our peer group. So that suggests to me that it's a very ambitious target. I do wonder whether it's too ambitious, perhaps, because we're very red all the time in this.
We've sort of addressed, Councillor Earle has we have addressed it in other meetings, but Councillor Earle has re-emphasised it in this meeting. I think we've said that we'll take that way and it's being addressed. So
my real question about this KPI was the trend that I can see in over the past year, which is a gradual increase from maybe the mid to upper 20s to the mid to upper 30s in this figure of the number of days to relet all housing stock. Now the comments on the right talk about seasonal issues. And I understand the comments and they all make perfect sense, but they're not talking about this trend over the past year. I can see in the increase. So I wondered if there's, if we understand what's behind that trend, and whether we know what's causing that gradual increase over the past year or so, and whether we have steps to try and address it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Batchelor.
Yes, thanks very much. Yes, obviously we have no control on the numbers that come into us, and at certain seasons and so on, you get big increases. I mean, last year, on average, we were dealing with something around 60 properties on hand at any one time. The number as of the end of January was 98. So there's been a 50% increase in the number of houses coming back to us. And the other side of all this, of course, the world has changed in terms of statutory requirements, standards for the properties and so on. So there's a lot more work that needs to go into them than was in our 17-day target. So I think that combination, I mean, we've got to make it more realistic at the moment. It's meaningless. But we are subject to the vagaries of the world, and the truth is most properties come back to us when people die, and that's not a controllable factor in these sort of things. So as I say, we've got 98 now. Used to have around 60 odd, so it's quite a different job.
Thank you, Councillor Batchelor. Councillor Hobro, did you?
Yeah, so I mean, I appreciate the difficulty in understanding what's behind all of this. I suppose, I mean, my comment would be that we need to keep an eye on this and continue to try to understand what we can do to avoid the increase continuing up and up and up. I mean, I would note that we are still in that top quartile, so it's not a really worryingly high figure, but I do worry when I see it gradually increasing like that. Thank you. May I ask the next question?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So this is going back to page 17. So earlier on, I commented that there were, I think I listed 7 KPIs that show a steady improvement over 3 years, which was great news. So the ones on this page, these are all about planning, timing for planning applications. These all show a steady improvement over the last year and a half, and it's a very dramatic improvement in all these cases. So the PN 519, this is the average time to determine validated householder planning applications, and then the percentage that are determined within 13 weeks for major applications, and the percentage determined within 8 weeks for non-major applications. So they're all showing a really significant improvement within the last 18 months. So my question really was, do we understand what's behind that improvement? It's great to see it. I wanted just to make sure that it's a real improvement and not something where we're simply asking for more extensions, because I understand that these numbers, it says within 13 weeks or agreed timeline. So I think there is the option in there to improve the figures by asking for more extensions. So I wanted to make sure that this is a real improvement in timing as it appears to be, but also to ask if we understand exactly how we've managed to achieve this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hobro. I was just thinking, I don't know if Brian Milnes is on the call that might want to take that. No, I think he might have gone. I don't. Have we got anyone from planning? Oh, lovely. Yeah, come in.
Hello. Yes, so they are genuine figures. We're reducing the number of extensions of time that we are requesting. There are obviously cases where they are required. The lot of it has been through the work when we had our backlog team to actually reduce the backlog that we had, because obviously they were causing us to have greater extensions of time, and obviously applications that were overrunning. So through the work of reducing our backlog, which we don't have anymore, over the last couple of years, we have been able to do that again through actually having a fully staffed planning department to get through the numbers of applications that we're receiving. Has allowed us, so these are genuine improvements along with process improvements. There's multiple factors here that are reflecting the changes that we've done within the planning department to see these changes in improvement in the service.
Thank you. Councillor Hobro, did you want to come back at all?
Yeah, so thank you very much for the reassurance that these, the numbers are what they seem to be. So, I mean, the first thought that I had was that this might be related to the fact that we're now better staffed in planning, and that this is related to the 4-day working week delivering what it was supposed to deliver. I'm not sure if anyone's able to comment on that, but it's really good to see this improvement, and I hope it will continue. Thank you.
Thank you. That's noted. Councillor Ellington.
I can't find the actual reference, but I am quite sure that within these purple papers somewhere, I noted for Ormond Street, I might say, that the turnaround time for properties in the private sector, as Ermine Street is, are very similar to the turnaround time for our let properties. And I think we ought to be judging the two on an even footing rather than expect our council staff to be working wonders and bringing it down very much lower than it is at the moment.
Okay. Do you want to comment on that, Councillor?
Couldn't agree more.
Couldn't agree more. There we go. Lovely. Councillor Stephen Drew.
Thank you. If I could go first of all to page 22, FS 117, regarding staff turnover. We seem to, since the, I'm going to say the third quarter or whatever kind of point during 2023, have managed to hold a lower level, and then we seem to have had a significant reduction once again. I know it's only a 1 quarter reduction. I wondered if any of the cabinet members would like to comment on why they think we seem to be doing so much better in reducing our staff turnover than used to be the case.
Councillor Batchelor, I'll come to you first on this.
Right, thanks very much. I think the answer is going to be pretty obvious. It's the 4-day week, you know, because this is very attractive to staff, and they're incentivized, and you know, as turnover, 1.26 in December. That's you know, it's excellent outturn. So as long as we've got happy staff and we actually deal with people in a proper civilized manner, they're going to be incentivized to do a good job and stay with it. So
as an extension and follow-up to that, Councillor Batchelor, you may wish to transfer this to one of the officers because it's probably a more operational question. What are the benefits to the council of having such a low level of staff turnover? First of all, from a efficiency perspective and a delivery perspective, and then second of all, from a financial perspective, what do we think are the benefits from those two angles of having such a low staff turnover?
Councillor Batchelor.
Right. Well, as you say, that is a more technical question. I think Julie is with us somewhere.
Okay, yeah. Jeff Membry?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, certainly. One of the advantages of having a low turnover is when it comes to organisational efficiency. When an experienced member of staff leaves, obviously you lose that experience. You have to put resource into recruiting a new person. You have to get that new person on board. You have to train them up, and it takes about a year normally for them to get to the level of experience and efficiency that you would have had with a more experienced member of staff. So every time we're not having to go out and recruit, that's organisational efficiency improvement. Our turnover rate is down since the 4-day week by about 30%. So it does represent quite a significant improvement in our organisational efficiency. The 4-day week also drives personal efficiency as well, but that wasn't really the nature of the question.
Great, thank you. Okay, if I could move us to page 23 and go to ES 430. ES 430 about the percentage of flight is clear within 10 working days. There is a clear uptick, and it is sustained over the last 2 years in relation to the percentage of flight tips clear within 10 working days. This is obviously something that is extremely beneficial for residents, and it is something that's beneficial across the whole of the district. And I was wondering if either Councillor Warren Green or one of the officers could give us some explanation of why they think this has been achieved.
I think I can kick off. I've spent some time with the fly tipping team, and it's grown. We've got some real experts on the team. Very, very impressed with the calibre of people, the background that the team has in dealing with concerns around not only fly tipping but also antisocial behaviour. So they are professionals in the area. And I think that uptick of having a team that is expert but also more of them is probably a contributing factor. I would imagine that from the team we have on board, maybe Bodie or Rebecca might want to speak to that.
Thank you, Councillor Warren Green. I think you've made all the comments that this is due very much largely to the fact that thankfully we have an increased number of resources within the team. So that's what the results are now beginning to show. Not only are we clearing flights very quickly, but also there's been quite a large increase in the number of fixed penalty notices that we're able to issue and also prosecutions. So yes, it's primarily due to the additional resources that have been devoted to that team.
Okay, marvellous, thank you. If I can move us on to page 25, CC 303, percentage of calls to the contact centre that are handled, and CC 307, my apologies, I've lost it on my screen, average call time in seconds. Now, both of these actually do seem to have taken a slight turn for the worse over the last few months. And I was just wondering if there was any explanation that could be provided and whether or not there are any concerns that this might represent a long-term downturn, or if it's seen as something that is going to be a temporary move in the wrong direction.
Okay. Who's Jeff Membry, I think, is coming in on that.
Thank you very much, Chair. I mean, we do see variations in answer times. Our answer times are exceptionally good still, but you're right, they have fallen off a little bit. Partly this was due to the fact that we've been doing work to introduce a CRM, customer relationship management system, which will give us long-term benefits. What that has meant, though, is that when fielding calls, the first time that the member of the contact centre is speaking with a customer, they have to ask them a few more questions and record a little bit more information. Now, that hasn't, although it hasn't had a big detrimental impact, that does take a little bit more time. We don't anticipate that continuing to be an issue, particularly because we've just last week launched our new voice call centre, where when somebody phones up now, rather than have to do the press 1 for council tax, press 2 for whatever, people can now ask for the service that they want, and they'll put directly through. Now, what that will do is over time speed up actually call answer times. So we're very optimistic that what we'll see is we won't see any reduction in performance. What we'll see is an improvement in performance going forward. And as the AI assistant learns, it will be able to actually answer some of the more transactional questions without needing to put people through to an officer, so that people will be answered not only immediately, but they'll be able to phone up and ask their question 24 hours a day.
Okay, great, thank you very much. If I could just move on to the business plan progress report, which obviously is the second part of this. I just have a few questions in relation to that, which are obviously slightly different. If we go to page 40, and I could move to 5B, which in the section 5B, 5B1, related to awarding up to £50,000 of funding via electric vehicle charge point grants. I see that it's labelled as green, but the text describes as the take-up of the grant has been slow and no further applications received except the Caxton Parish Council in Q2. I'm just wondering, the green, is that to tell us that we expect £50,000 to be awarded by the end of this period, or that it has been awarded? I'm just wondering exactly what that's telling me, because it seems quite a positive picture, but the text doesn't quite seem so positive.
Councillor Natalie Warren Green.
I've been given that this is Bodie's team, and he will understand the detail of this. You know, I'd rather he dealt with this as an operational.
Okay. Bode? Come in. Bode?
Sorry, I lost comms for a short while. Could you please restate the question?
Yes, I'm looking at 5B on page 40. I'm looking actually, there's a number of 5Bs. Oh, there isn't actually, there's only one, my mistake. I'm looking at 5B on page 40. It's the 4th row down. And it says that the council intends to award up to £50,000 of funding via electric vehicle charge point grants. And it's been ragged as green, but the text suggests that take-up has been slow. So I'm just wondering for what reason it's been judged as being green as a rag, and are we expecting the £50,000 to be awarded by the end of Q4?
Thank you.
Bode, can you just lift your mic up a little bit? I think some of the members find it difficult to hear you. Thanks.
Sorry, is this better?
That's better, thank you.
Apologies, thank you. I lost comms for a short while as well. I think I'll have to, if the chair allows, take this back and look in more detail. I don't want to give an incomplete answer. I'm not sure if Kevin is online. Maybe he has a ready answer. But my only expectation will be that it's green because it's on track. It may be that we have some applications in progress that will enable us to hit that target. That's probably why it's been ranked green. But I'll rather take this away and come back with a more definitive answer, if that's okay, please, Chair.
Becca's indicating to speak. Did you want to come in?
Yes, thank you. I was just going to say, I think that is the case at the time when the status was set, that I think we were in an optimistic state of mind, and I think that we can obviously check on the latest situation and report back.
Okay, thank you. If I could go to the 1-2 above that, which is 4E, reducing carbon emissions from SCDC business travel. It refers to the business plan output being communications to help reduce carbon emissions through business travel. And then in the text for position at the end of Q3, it says e-bikes were launched for use by staff at South Cambs Hall in October 2024. Take up to date has been low due to time of year. And then it says we continue to send out internal communications via electric car and cycle to work schemes through our HR newsletter and our staff intranet. And it's then marked as green, which I understand means we feel we're on progress to reach target by the end of the year. I'm just wondering what the measure is to decide this target has been reached. Because the business plan output says communications to help reduce carbon emissions. Are we green because we have done communications, and therefore actually it's an incredibly simple target to reach, because the target, the output is we've spoken to people, and it doesn't make any reference to whether or not they've listened or done anything in response? Or, based on the first line, is it that we judge ourselves to be on track because the e-bikes have been launched and therefore an action's been taken, but the text next to the e-bikes seems to be quite negative because it suggests that the e-bikes haven't been taken up? I must confess this is a rare example of one that I fundamentally don't understand why it's green. So could somebody possibly please attempt to explain that?
Natalie Warren Green, do you want to come in first?
Yes, I mean, to your point about it being on track and will be the reason that it's green, from a transformation point of view, that's how they will be tracking that. I don't know the detail on how they're going to be looking at the data for tracking ongoing adoption, and what sort of actionable insight is being gathered. So I can follow up and get the detail around that after this meeting. We do have a hand up though, from somebody who might be able to give more of an insight now, but I also am very passionate about actionable insight, so I will follow up on this.
Okay, Kevin, did you want to come in on that?
Yeah, just to confirm that the status is based primarily on the undertaking of the communication, We do have access to some underlying business mileage figures that we could look to report back on. However, the output for at the start of the financial year was primarily around the communication to make sure that everyone is aware of the different options that are available in relation to different transportation options that might help to reduce carbon emissions from business travel.
Okay. If I could just suggest, okay, now I'm being quite concerned, because it's a business plan, and a business plan by definition is supposed to deliver improvement, it's supposed to deliver progress, it's supposed to deliver outcomes. I'm a little concerned to find that I have a business plan output where we can say that we have met the target because we have told people about something. How are we measuring the effectiveness of our communication? We could have told them about it by just sticking a flyer on their desk on a wet Wednesday when they weren't in or they weren't concentrating. So apologies for my scepticism on this. I'm not doubting the work that has been done, but I'm a little bit concerned in that regard. I'm not asking a question in that regard. If anybody wishes to come back, that's fine. Otherwise, I have one more, if that's okay, Chair. I wish to go to page 45 as my final bit. If I can first of all reference to 2B2, which is the second line. My question here is kind of a bit similar to the one I've just asked regarding communication about the reducing carbon emissions. 2B2, develop and deliver a new work experience programme for 15 and 16-year-olds. It then describes, quite rightly, what seems to be very effective in some way. 13 students, 3 schools attended, they completed workshop-style sessions, and it's graded as purple, suggesting it's already been met. What are we actually saying that we have done which proves that what we have done has made a difference and is good? Because the output says, develop and deliver a new work experience programme. How do we know that it was an effective work experience programme? How do we know it was better than what was in place before? Because we delivered it, and therefore it's purple.
Okay, Kevin Ledger, did you want to come back in on that, or did... Kevin? Lovely.
Happy to try and answer that one. I think that what I'd say is that certainly in relation to the new business plan or corporate action plan that we've set for the coming financial year, that is something that we've tried to concentrate on, is around looking to make sure that we can track things through a little bit more rather than just focusing primarily on a piece of communication, as you say, without or an event or whatever it may be, without kind of having that ability to track through. And I would say that perhaps, when we wrote this, we could have included a little bit more to that extent. However, that's something that we have kind of learnt from, I would say. And I would say Jeff's got his hand up, and I've anecdotally or from other people, I've heard the positive things in relation to to feedback in relation to those work experience programs. But I'll let Jeff fill in on any more detail.
Jeff, do you briefly want to come in on that?
Just to say, Chair, that unfortunately the HR colleague that's worked in this area isn't on the call today. So rather than just be generally vague, if you would be happy, we'll do a written response to that question.
Yes, lovely, great, thanks very much. I don't doubt that the work was done, was effective. I don't doubt that it's a good thing. I think I'd just like to see something a bit more evidential in that regard. And then just to finish off, if I can reference the 2B3, which is the third line down, and just to comment really, I think the council should be making a real statement about the fact that it has absolutely acted in a way to support veterans and to support the Armed Forces Covenant. This is an excellent action on the part of the council, and I'm really pleased to see that that is green and that is going forward. And then obviously the bit below on 2B4 refers to a training course. And I think that's something the council should be celebrating very clearly and making an absolute statement to the veterans in our community that their experience is valued and that they are most welcome to be part of our workforce.
Again, I'm seeing a lot of nodding, so I think that's been noted. Councillor Stobart, I think you're our last speaker on this. Yeah.
So I just wanted to continue some of the points that Councillor Drew was making around electric vehicle charging. And comment first that it is a very fast-moving area. So what counts as good vehicle charging now may well have not been considered even in the recent past. So there are two strands here. One is that we are seeking to fund locally and typically with parish councils charging points in their car parks, by the roadside and so on. And then we've also got this kind of overarching strategic aspect that's that's in the remit of the combined authority. So I wanted to ask the question, is our local strategy being responsive to these higher level goals, and are these higher level goals actually meeting the needs? So for example, I recall a discussion at a certain parish council meeting where the possibility of charges was discussed, but the strategic aspect for the village, there was just no handle on that, and the parish council was struggling really to position the project. There's a lot to be done here, and maybe it's just a comment that this is quite complex and fast moving, and we ought to be perhaps questioning how these things fit together, and asking, how are we acquiring the latest kind of market position, so that we can make our local offering relevant and we support it properly. So let me just finish with one example. Fast charging versus slow charging. So 7 kilowatts versus 60 or 70. Could we think of providing fast charging in certain locations to suit a certain type of behaviour? And then, as people are commenting, for roadside charging, it looks as though those chargers that are integrated with lighting, for example, lampposts, work extremely well, in streets of terraced housing, or where parking on the curtilage is not possible. So,
I think we get the gist of the question. So, Rebecca, are you coming in on that? Natalie's indicated.
Just to provide reassurance on that, we are doing our utmost to be joined up and interactive, literally, with our colleagues at the county and the CPCA to align our policies on EV charging and adapt, as an approach. So we are completely trying to do that. So just to reassure you.
Lovely. Councillor Stobart.
And I don't think we should be afraid to change direction if the need arises. So I think there should be the courage to say, well, actually the demand is not there, or the demand is somewhere else, and we should change direction. And could I add a second question, Chair?
Okay,
That'd be okay. So this is concerning, it's the top of page 38, the first item on page 38, which is, we will work with the City Council, water industry, etc. So this is the water thing. And I was concerned that the, if you will, the business plan activity is talking, working with, but with no necessary loop closure. Now, this is a tough area to be in because we don't know, I think at this high strategic level, just what that closure condition is going to be. But what I wanted to add here was, there is another side to this. This is the supply. We're talking about supply. There is demand.
Yeah.
And I wondered what we are doing or could do, or is the discussion going on about how we understand water consumption and how we can intervene sometimes. So let me give you one example. I just have to remind everyone that I'm a board member of South Cambridge Investment Partnership, and one of the things that we did quite, 18 months ago, I think, was to have a think about, could the project apply for water neutrality funding? And at the time, I think we were too far ahead. But are we encouraging water neutrality? And are we doing the things, particularly with the bigger developments, around understanding the potential of district-wide water schemes? Now, recently we've seen some presentations, JDCC, some pre-app presentations, which are not considering district-wide. So are we doing enough on water consumption that we can be effective in our planning committees, in our purchasing of houses through Section 106 agreements, that we're getting that understanding, gathering the data that we need?
Thank you, Councillor Stobart. Shall I go straight over, because we haven't got anyone from planning? Mr. Dixon, is that, I can see on the screen there? Lovely.
Hello, we have got someone from planning. Water, so I'm obviously leading on the local plan work, and I have to say water is one of the biggest topics we've been grappling with for some time. We're doing a lot of work on that in terms of evidence and working with the Cambridge Water Scarcity Group, which brings together, having been set up by the government, basically every agency you can think of that's involved in water planning. Picking up specifically on those points about water efficiency, though, many of the larger applications, so the strategic scale, new settlements and urban extensions and so on, very much have gone beyond our adopted standards in terms of efficiency, and with help of our sustainability officer guiding those, achieve some very strong water efficiency measures already. Through the local plan work, we're absolutely exploring whether and how to develop a policy that secures water efficiency reflecting the pressures on our area. We are, as part of that, looking at water recycling measures and the effectiveness of, say, schemes which would recycle grey water out of your homes, but also rainwater potentially as well. We're looking at the economics of that, which schemes that's most effective for. But I can reassure the committee that that is very much on our radar to come back to you in the short term now, in the coming months, with some recommendations for policies around those matters and some further evidence. Thank you.
Thank you, that's very reassuring. Councillor Stobart.
Well, very helpful to hear. Through you, Chair. Thank you, John, for that comment. Good. And it would be great for something to come back to this committee for us to, do what we do.
Lovely, thank you for that. So I've got, do you want to just come in on that point?
Yeah. Just another encouraging comment. The government's recently given us £5 million to retrofit regulator for the homes, which stops a lot of wasted water and so on. And we have a program we've just started to fit those to our housing stock.
Okay, so I've got two further speakers. If we could try and speed things, just because I'm conscious we've got two other items on the agenda. So we've got Councillor Lehman, then Councillor Hobro.
Thank you, Chair. Mine's just a really quick question, really. So these KPIs, we've seen them for so long. They're a bit like old friends, really, but they're going to be heading off, some of them. I'd like to know when the new KPIs will appear, and will they go through Cabinet first? And if they do go through Cabinet, could they be shared with Scrutiny before they're sort of populated with data, so that we can get our heads around them before we get given them populated with data, please? Because it would be good for us to understand what we would be reviewing next quarter. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Kevin Ledger, do you want to come in on that first, or are you happy if that's
I think Jeff is actually leading on that.
Okay, Jeff Membry.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. We are working through the results of the workshops we had. I have to say that actually we didn't find that members wanted a lot of change. So actually it's going to be more a case of refinement and improvement rather than wholesale changes to the KPIs. The general feedback that we got from members was that you quite like the set that we've got at the moment, and that you wanted to see that consistency going back over a few more years. But yes, I believe the intention is to bring them to scrutiny before taking them to Cabinet.
Good. Councillor Lehman.
Thank you, that's great. So do you think that will be on the next agenda? Because I guess when it's the Q1 review in June, I'm just looking at our timetables actually. We have our next meeting. When is our next meeting after this one? Because we would be reviewing the quarter. Our next one is in June, so perhaps we'd see them in the June, review them in the June meeting, and they'd be populating data, and we'd have the data for the next quarter, the next scrutiny meeting after that.
That seems reasonable.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Hobro.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be conscious I need to be quick here. So a couple of questions, both following up from previous ones that we've been talking about. The first on the water scarcity that Councillor Stobart was just talking about. So I've just installed 2 large water tanks behind my shed, which will collect 2,000 litres of water, which I'm hoping will see me through a dry summer.
Well done.
Now, doing this is quite awkward and expensive. I know that we certainly used to have incentives for water butts and garden incentives. I don't see much on garden water usage in this part of the plan and progress report, and I wondered if we're still working on that, and if perhaps we're even developing new ideas on how we can help reduce specifically garden water usage. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Natalie Green.
Again, that's a very specific question about garden water usage. I think, all the matrix are coming in around water usage. I will need to have a follow-up in writing and find out some more detail about that one.
So I think the recommendation is essentially that we look into it and try and look at incentives for homeowners to take on board new facilities to maximise that. So yeah, lovely. I think that's been noted. Lovely.
Yeah, my other question was following on from Councillor Drew's comment about the reducing carbon emissions. I mean, I second what he said about the outcome here. In this is page 40, the second line. The outcome is to reduce carbon emissions from business travel. And I do feel that there needs to be some assessment of whether or not we have actually reduced carbon emissions from business travel. I ride an e-bike, I love e-bikes, but just buying them isn't enough. That we need to be sure that they are being used, and we want to, and perhaps some kind of figure on mileage, and something that assesses whether or not we have actually succeeded in reducing our mileage and carbon emissions, rather than an output related to communication, I think is essential here. Thank you.
I'm seeing nodding on that, so we'll get that information in future reports, I think, so we can see if it's been successful or not, really. Yeah, is that? Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you. Lovely. Okay, I don't think we have any other speakers, so on that we will go to the recommendations of the report. I think we have noted and scrutinised and made some recommendations on that. Is everyone happy that we've done so?
Agreed.
Thank you. So we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is agenda item 7, weekly food waste collections, pages 53 to 66. Who would like to start on this? Rebecca, are you indicating to speak there, or?
Could I?
We don't normally. We normally take questions. Okay. Yeah, is that okay?
It is okay, but could I just say that there's been some development since the report was written, which is
okay. Fine. That's go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Just wanted to point out that the report does say that we have been waiting for the outcome of our appeal to DEFRA for some of the funding, the shortfall of the funding, but we have now had that the response to that appeal this week, and so we now know that some of the shortfall in capital funding has been addressed. And also, similarly, we've heard about some of the revenue funding, which we were waiting to hear about as well.
So does that mean, sorry, Rebecca, does that mean we've been given more money?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So our appeal has been successful, is what you're saying?
It's been successful.
Yeah.
It's not all of what we wanted, but it's good.
Positive news, yeah.
Good. Okay. Lovely. So, Councillor Stobart, was that?
I thought one of the two gentlemen.
Yeah, Councillor Stobart.
My specific question is on the choice of the vehicles. And I just want to be sure, there is a comment on the expense associated with either electric or it is possible a hybrid 12-ton truck. So it's not just the technology of the truck. I wanted to be sure that we had examined that carefully. So just a very quick look around what's happening in the world. Basildon, for example, leases its fleet of food collection trucks, which are electric. So there are examples out there of councils that have gone with what I'd call a particularly green solution to the fleet requirement. But I just wanted to dig in a little bit and understand the options assessment that was done that's resulted in the choice. So I had a second question, but perhaps we can just dwell there. You know, why a conventional technology truck? Yes, my second point was associated, which was if we're buying 22 vehicles, adjacent authorities will also be buying trucks. Is there advantage to be had in combining purchasing power, which could actually result in a better specification, lower price? So yeah, the options assessment, combining purchasing strength, two questions.
Councillor Natty Warren-Green, buying power and green vehicles.
So I'll kick it off. I mean, in terms of the options assessment, there's been a thorough job done of looking at all the different options that are on the market and what neighbouring councils and also councils that are further afield are using. The green options are clearly high on the agenda for this. The report has got some of that information in it, and we've got a year before we implement this. We're implementing in May 2026. Between now and then, things might change. At the moment, we've got an indicative understanding of what we'll be using, and obviously we have to order the vehicles in good time because it's quite hard to get hold of vehicles. Because DEFRA is introducing food waste for all councils all over the country at the same time. So within the consideration of what we're using in vehicles, we have to think about supply and demand and what's expected of us in terms of implementation. There is more information than that, and I know that Bodie and Dee are very close to the details, so if they want to add to that, they're quite welcome to, but that is our situation at the moment.
Thank you. Councillor Stobart.
Yeah, I'm concerned that if there is a choice out there that we go for, because we say we're green to our core, that we do actually examine those in great detail and only very reluctantly back off. I think so. So the options assessment should demonstrate that kind of deep look at the possibilities, and maybe even to have a mixed fleet. Diesel for the longer trips and electric for the shorter ones. Something in the way we've structured the main waste collection fleet. So yeah, I hear what's being said, but I'd like to be sure that we had examined it. Yeah.
Bodie's indicated. I think we've sort of addressed the question. I think we'll move on. So, Councillor Rippeth.
It's a question probably more to Rebecca Weymouth-Wood than Councillor Warren-Green, unless you know. How much have DEFRA said they're going to pay towards both the revenue and capital costs?
Rebecca, did you want to come in on that?
Yes. So we had already been awarded just over £3 million worth of capital to say. We'd already got that, and we've now been awarded another 5,840 well, and round it up, £584,721. That's capital. So we've now got basically 3.7 million, and this is as a both councils shared service, I should say. And for the revenue, we've got £821,000, a bit over that.
Yeah, come in. Yeah.
Yeah,
Can I just come out?
Thank you. Sorry, I'm Councillor Warren Green. Maybe you actually knew that. Apologies.
Well, no, I just want to make the point that actually the miscalculation was done at DEFRA, so it was really pleasing that they actually responded to the request, and they had miscalculated the number of houses, and in particular the number of flats that we have in the area, and that meant that when they looked at it, they realised that there was a serious miscalculation, hence that extra money.
Thank you very much for obviously pushing for that.
Okay, Councillor Bradnam.
Thank you. I have two questions, but could I just ask Rebecca Weymouth-Wood to give us that number again? The extra, you said we had 3 million already awarded, and I lost track of where the decimal point was in the extra money we'd got. If you could give us that again, please.
Yes, it is. It's an extra. Also, the capital, yes, it's an extra 584,721.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Right, so the questions I wanted to ask were, you're referring to the separate collections of food waste at paragraph 26 on page 59, and it's talking about waste being sent to an anaerobic digester facilities rather than needlessly lost to landfill, and that's good. But I just wanted to know, have you any idea where these anaerobic digestion facilities will be? And the second question is, to what degree is the District Council and the Shared Waste Service working with the County Council as a disposal authority? And I appreciate food waste may be slightly separate to other types of waste, but if you could explain that, that would be helpful.
Councillor Natalie Warren Green.
I think the first question is for Rebecca, and the second question I can say, County Council is fully part of RECAP, and RECAP in every single meeting we have, we are discussing food waste and how we all work together as partners in that organisation. So the County Council are fully engaged with what we're doing with food waste through the RECAP partnership.
Good. Rebecca, did you want to come in on the other point?
Yes, thank you. So yes, we are fully engaging with the County Council on this particular aspect of it, and you know, we've been quite specific with them about the fact that we need an AD facility, and they are already in the process of going off and you know, doing that work to source the appropriate AD facility. So in terms of exactly where it is, no, we don't know that yet. That's the process that they have to go through, but it will be obviously within Cambridgeshire.
I suppose, if I may, Chair.
Councillor Bradnam.
My concern was, is the preference to use an existing facility, or are you considering, is it being considered that we might need to build something new?
Rebecca?
Well, I understand it that they'll be looking at, you know, existing facilities in the first, you know, but ultimately I can't really speak for the County Council, but
yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Lovely. Councillor Ellington?
Thank you. My question was very similar in that actually finding accommodation for another 60, 70 staff. I know there will be out, a lot will be out on the road, but to deal with the paperwork and all the things that people have to do in offices, I just didn't see that being able to expand at Milton, and also their cars and the vehicles, and really it looks like a big enterprise to set it up. And will that be A, where, and B, how long is it going to take to actually create the right environment to do the job, really, if you're not getting the money till 2026?
Okay. Did you want to comment on that first?
I'll very briefly say that there is a plan for expanding the car park.
Yeah.
We've walked it, we've seen the area that it is, the detail on the timing.
Yeah.
I think I'll hand over to Rebecca or to Bodie. I think Bodie's got his hand up.
I was going to say Bodie can probably answer, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Bodie.
Thank you, Chair. I think just to confirm, thank you for the question. Absolutely, we do need to expand the depot. Those plans are already underway. We have plans to extend the car park by another 22 vehicles for the trucks, but also 70 car parking spaces. That's going to be done by the landlord, so that plan is already underway. We have received the initial capital money. We got that last year. So in the next few months, once we get all the approvals, we will begin to embark on the procurement. So yes, there's a lot of work underway. We've expanded the car park, and hopefully when DEFRA also confirms the revenue awards, we will need to be taking on more supervisory staff as well. So it's a big enterprise, as stated, but we are planning for that, including the depot expansion.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Ellington. Yeah, happy? Councillor Lehman.
Thank you, Chair. So just following on from that, we've been given additional capital money. Is that for additional vehicles, or is it for the depot expansion, or is it both?
So the sorry, Chair, if I can come in.
Yeah, come in.
It's not just for the vehicles. I think, like we said at the beginning, there was an error in the initial award because DEFRA didn't account for the correct property numbers. They didn't account for the fact that we have flats in both South Cambridgeshire and Cambridge City, and therefore we need communal bins for those areas. Also, they assumed that we were still carrying on with our trial, which stopped 2 years ago. So they actually deducted the properties in that trial. They've now corrected all those errors. That's where the additional funding is coming from. We're still pursuing the government for some awards for the depot expansion. That's a separate category because not all councils need to expand their depot, but quite a few of us need to, and we made the case strongly. They haven't yet given us an award for that. That's still pending.
Thank you. Councillor Lehman.
Thank you for that clarity. That really helps. So could I ask then, what is the remaining shortfall? So in our papers, we had both Cambridge City and South Cambs each had capital funding shortfall of 464,000, and then we had a separate figure for the revenue. How is that looking now?
Bodie, do you want to come back in on that?
I would say that we just got that award 2 days ago. The team is looking at that in detail. The shortfall has been drastically reduced. We'll rather give a written response after the meeting, but it's a lot less than that now. I'll rather give you a sort of more complete figures. It's looking a lot less, but there's still a shortfall. But if we can, please, we'll provide a written response afterwards.
I would really appreciate a written response for that. That's brilliant. Thank you. My last question is to do with the efficiency of the green waste collection. So I was looking at points, it's on page 57 and 58. Disposing of food through anaerobic digestion is much cheaper than the existing way that we're dealing with everything in the green bin. But I'm thinking more about the practical aspect of the bin rounds and the routes that people will be going on with the green bins. Have we factored in any efficiencies or costs to do with the change of weight of volume that will not be in the green bins anymore because they'll be in the food bins? I know one of the things we're very keen to do is to help people not put food waste in their black bin, and it's to make sure that people have a better alternative to disposing of food in the black bin. But most people have been, or a number of people have been putting it in the green bin, and the green bin volume will reduce. I just wondered how those contracts worked with collections of the green waste, and whether we're under any kind of you know, whether we're paying contracts for volume of disposal with the green waste.
Bode, do you want to come in on that?
Thank you, Chair. I think it's thank you for the question. We haven't planned for any reductions yet because it's very, very difficult to determine what they will be. But absolutely, as the service is rolled out, we expect to see a reduction in the amount of green waste and also black bin waste. What we can then do is review the rounds then, and if we can then reduce the number of vehicles. But at this stage, it's very much too early to determine what the impact is going to be because we don't know how people will respond. We don't know how they're going to behave. This also goes for the actual food waste trucks. We have to assume that everybody will be using the service and they'll be putting out some food waste. But as the service evolves, maybe that we need less vehicles. So we have to start based on 100% usage assumed. And then as the service evolves, we could then draw back just to make sure that we don't have a gap in service delivery. But we can readily adapt either the green bin or the black bin service once we see a significant reduction in the waste being put out.
Thank you. Councillor Lehman.
Thank you again for a comprehensive answer. I guess it's going to be a bit of a, we'll have to wait and see to how people behave. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I've just got a very brief question. I'll be quick on there's still a shortfall in funding, as I understand. I know we've just got new figures on that. Will we, I don't expect these figures to be now because I understand the figures have changed, but will we still have comparative data against a 5-day and a 4-day working week to look at those shortfalls, both in terms of staffing and vehicle costs? Can we get that in the future?
Yes, we can. We are planning for a 4-day week service because that's the service that we currently run for the other 3 waste streams. But based on the modeling that we did 2 years ago, when we're about to move to a 4-day week service for the other 3 waste streams, we have an understanding of the comparison between 4-day and 5-day week service. So once we have completed the modeling for the new weekly food waste collection rounds, we will be able to determine what it may look like if it were to be a 5-day week service. Yes, we'll be able to do that.
Thank you for that. Lovely. Okay, so I think we have no other speakers on this item. So did you want to come in quickly? Yeah? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I put my hand up earlier. But
sorry, I didn't see you. Sorry.
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions, if that's okay. The first is a very simple one, and I think it's kind of been answered already, but I just wanted a quick clarification. So on page 54 at the top, then it cites the current capital allocation shortfall and then says the potential revenue shortfall is currently unknown. Now, I know that Rebecca clarified that we now have additional information from DEFRA on the funding. So are those 2 figures known now? And if so, exactly what are they? What are the figures that will go in there when the report goes to Cabinet?
If I can come in, Chair, if that's okay.
Sorry, my mic wasn't on. I had to, ask you to speak. Yeah, lovely. Cheers.
Thank you. What we intend to do is maintain the figures as they are, because the same report has gone to the Cambridge City Council as well. But in due course, the figures will be adjusted to reflect additional funding we have received for both councils. So both councils will only allocate what's needed. That's on the capital funding. On the revenue, the award that we have so far is only transitional revenue to help with procurement, with project management, with communications. The government still hasn't given any indication of what the award will be for ongoing revenue. They plan to do that later in the year. So the revenue figures we have in this report still stand. We don't know how much we're going to get from the government yet. However, the fact that they have adjusted our property numbers should mean that the revenue allocation they give us when they do should be as close as possible to what we expect to be given anyway. We shouldn't have the same gap that we had with the capital funding, but there's no indication at all from the government yet on any revenue funding.
Thank you. Councillor Hobro?
So yeah, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that we at least have some bounds on those figures in sort of the headline part of the report. Thank you. The other question was about the take-up for this service in the trial. So this is much further down. I'm sorry, I've lost the page. But it was around about 50%. So about half of the people in the trial were using the service. sorry, I've lost the, I'll find it in a minute. In the trial, roughly half of the people in the trial were using the service and the other half weren't. Of the people who didn't use it, do we have, yes, okay, so we're on page 60. I'm talking about the top of page 60. Do we know how many of those people were simply throwing their food waste in the black bin, or how many were perhaps using home composting? And so I speak as someone who puts all my food waste in the compost, in a sealed composter in the garden. I mean, we're a rural district, and I appreciate this is a shared service that includes the city as well, but there will be plenty of households with gardens that will be doing home composting. And I noticed there's no mention of that at all in this report. So is that taken into account? Do we have any idea how many people in the trial were simply not separating their food waste, or how many were perhaps disposing it in the greenest possible way, which is to dispose of it at home?
I think we should have an article in the next magazine about what a good citizen Councillor Hobro is. Bode.
We do have some statistics from the 3-year food waste trial that we ran. I think some of those were presented in the briefings we had before. Again, I don't have that figure to hand, but it's been mirrored in our planning for now. We can share that later on. But based on the trial we did over 3 years that covered 9,000 properties, we have some data, and that's informed our planning to date.
Councillor Bradham, do you want to come in on this point, or?
Yes, on this point, please, Chair. Milton, my village, was part of the original food waste trial.
It was, yeah.
And I was one of those people who got a letter through my door saying, "Why aren't you using your food caddy?" And I said, because I'm a vegetarian, and I do eat fish, I have to say, so I'm not quite a vegetarian. But everything that I don't eat goes into my compost bin.
Good.
And so they said, "Oh, thank you very much."
Okay. Councillor Rippeth, do you want to come in on this point as well?
I don't want to be anecdotal, but as a resident of Milton as well, sorry, this is anecdotal, but people were beginning to and saying to me that they were actually reducing their food waste because they could see. I mean, I was one of those who put it in the caddy. Our garden's not that big, so we haven't got a compost. We basically could see initially, there's quite a lot of food being wasted, apart from the fact of cost too. And they were saying, "Oh yeah, we're reducing it." So I was really, really disappointed when the trial finished and stopped. But it was having the optimum effect of just consuming less and buying less and reducing what you waste.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful that I've remembered that correctly, but I'm pretty sure I have.
Yeah, so that's a fair comment, and I think probably on my joke around Councillor Hobro, that is a serious point that you could compare, and sort of really demonstrate what that food, waste is, with different families and so forth. Councillor Hobro.
So, yeah, thank you, Chair. So my concerns really are, first of all, just to make sure that we've accounted for it properly, because I didn't see any mention in the report. And I think there are quite a few people, as we've demonstrated in this room, who do home composting. And secondly, that we have a strategy for encouraging it, because it is actually the simplest and greenest option when it's available. And of course, I appreciate that it's not always available. Thank you.
I think that's a very reasonable recommendation that we incorporate that going forward, and everybody's nodding, so that's good. Okay, any other speakers on this issue? On this item, I should say. So I think we'll finish there. And if we go to recommendations, I think we have done that. We have commented, we have made recommendations and noted the report. I've had an indication that we'd like a 5-minute break. So we'll do that now and go offline and come back in 5 minutes. Thanks very much. Thanks very much. Okay, so we'll move on to agenda item 8, South Cambs Limited trading as Ermine Street Housing, review of business plan, and this is pages 67 to 178. Before we start this item, I just wanted to remind members that there are some restricted papers within the report. So if you are asking questions on the restricted papers, can you just be very mindful of what you're asking if it's going to disclose information on that report that could be detrimental to either ourselves or an outside person or organisation. I have cleared, I know there are a couple of councillors that do want to ask questions, which I've run past Duncan and John Murphy. Duncan, did you want to just comment on that? I intend to keep it in open session as much as possible. Please wave at me if you think we're doing anything lovely. And John, I think we're happy, but if you did you want to add anything?
No, Chair, you've put the principles out there very
Lovely.
well. I'm happy with the way you pitched it.
Okay, so I think Councillor Ellington wanted to come in first. Go ahead.
I've got two questions, really. The first one is, this paper has demonstrated that this is a very viable, excellent private enterprise that is wholly owned by the council. What I would like to raise, and I don't expect any immediate answers, is when we go for a unitary authority, who owns that? Is it going to be part of the unitary authority and all the money goes to those who haven't necessarily been quite so careful about producing assets to support the ratepayers? Or do we keep it as part of South Cambs in some way? And that concerns me, and I think the trustees of the directors need to be thinking on those sort of lines and planning for how to make it so that it's right, or the council is satisfied with the way it's dealt with.
Thank you, Councillor Ellington. It absolutely ran through my mind as well about us moving forward. Councillor Batchelor.
Yes, it's run through all our minds, I think. But the reality is it's just one of a large number of known unknowns that the government is yet to give us any sort of direction on. Just to throw in, there's the question of the 4-day week as well, of course, which may well lead to some complications. You know, the truth is, I don't know the answer to that, and but we keep asking.
Thank you for your honesty on that, Councillor Ellington.
I shall keep asking. Thank you for that.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Ellington.
The other question that's sort of at the front of my mind, and you might want to take it now, is on page 177, there are a number of graphs, mostly about arrears, but I just don't understand what they're telling me. And it seems to me, if we're going to have graphs, they ought to be informing us rather than causing us headaches. And so I would ask, what do they actually tell us?
Councillor Batchelor, Duncan is indicating to speak, but if you want to come in first.
I think this is one for Duncan.
Duncan, please come in.
So the introduction of these PIs is a sort of work in progress, evolving as part of the business plan. As you also see, the business plan included an asset management strategy and action plan associated with that, and the report alludes to performance information. So the appendix was just an example of some of the performance information.
Sorry, Forgive me, Chair. Can you just take your hand away?
Sorry.
Because it's affecting us hearing your voice.
Sorry.
Clearly.
Yep.
Thank you, Duncan.
Yeah, so this appendix was just an example of some of the performance information that we present to the board. And from the sounds of it, it's not appropriate for the business plan if members here don't understand, and I apologise for that. But if you just want me to briefly go through the 4 arrears graphs, I can.
If you would, I'd be grateful. Yeah.
Yeah, so it is a bit confusing because there were 2 vertical axes. So the left-hand vertical axis is the amount of arrears, and that's indicated by the purple blocks, and the 2 lines above it represent the percentage of the annual debt. So the debit percentage of the annual debt, annual rent due. Sorry. So, for example, if the rent due was £100 million, and we had and we had £100,000 arrears, that would be the percentage debit would be 1%. There's a mistake on one of the lines. The top line is reflecting of last year, and the bottom line, the bolder line, is the one that represents progress so far this year. So I guess that's a bit confusing about those 2 lines, but I'll take any, if people want some more clarification on that, I mean, I'm happy to. And sorry, the rest of the graphs on that, so we've got the former tenant one on the right-hand side, then you've got the combined one below, which has a target. You can see we're not anywhere near that target because of high rent arrears. But that's that target, the red line target of 2.34% is the perceived bad debt that is built into the business plan. So that's what.
Councillor Bradnam. Sorry, Duncan. Councillor Bradnam just wants to ask a question.
Given this is a commercial company, I'm just would like to have clarification as we should not be talking about numbers. Percentages would be fine, but not the amounts, because that's commercially sensitive information, isn't it?
I think Duncan was happy with the information that he's given. We'd had a chat beforehand. I've copied in the monitoring officer, so I think we're happy to continue in public. Yeah, I'm getting some nods on screen. So are you happy, Vice Chair, as well? Continue, Duncan.
Yeah, I mean, the number I just quoted is actually in the financial accounts that are lodged with Companies House. So I'm quite happy that that's not commercially sensitive or confidential. And the final graph on that page, that chart, that table 4 is the rent collected over the period, and the target at 98. That screen's down there. And we're just above that at the moment. So we are making inroads into the arrears, although it doesn't really look like it, does it, to be honest?
Okay.
So happy to take any more questions on that.
Okay, Councillor Ellington.
Can you just make it simpler next time?
I'll try my very best.
Lovely, thank you.
I think it's worth pointing out as well, if I could, I mean, is this the sort of information you want? Because this is sort of landlord operational stuff, which is presented to the board on a quarterly basis. Now, I'm not sure that maybe you need to see this, or even Cabinet to that degree.
Okay.
I mean, but you would want to see how much money the company's provided for the council, for example.
Yeah, I think it is reasonable. My view is that it's reasonable to see it just it's presented as clearly as possible, especially for this committee that are not necessarily on the board or have involvement with that. I would just picking up on Councillor Bradnam's point as well around the restricted papers. I think as much of this information we could keep off restricted papers going forward. If you're saying it's not, commercially sensitive, if we try and as much as possible keep it off, so we can discuss it freely, as Councillor Bradnam was indicating. We'll move on. Thank you for that explanation. It is helpful. Councillor Leeming.
Thank you, Chair. So I was just wondering, for a point of general clarity for anyone who's watching this committee or wants to read this paper, and for us all, if we could just have a couple of paragraphs that explains basically what the model of this business is. Because when you start reading these papers, there's a lot of implicit knowledge assumed in here, and you get into a lot of detail about the history and the business plans and so on. But just a really clear explanation of what, you know, how South Cambs District Council gets a return on their investment and what the mechanism that is. That's my first question, please. And if it could be written into these papers, I think
that's
that
a
would be
reasonable
helpful
recommendation.
For public understanding.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Peter.
Yes, I can give you a sort of brief sort of resume of how it works. So the council has been lending surplus cash over to Ermine Street, and Ermine Street in return provides an interest income stream to our general fund. The current rate, or the rate for next year, is 3.85%. So on the original 100 million, it's 3.85 million pounds worth of income to the council, which is pretty substantial in terms of our general fund income, and obviously we invest those into services that general fund provides. So it's a fairly straightforward model. It's basically lending money in the same way we could lend to another investment institution, and we get an interest return.
Thank you for that explanation. And I think what Councillor Lehman is getting at is that we have that written into the report so the public can appreciate that if they're coming to the document afresh. Is that right, Councillor Lehman?
Yes, thank you. I think there's a lot of detail, and it has an implicit knowledge of understanding of how it works. Thank you. So sort of following on from that point, so Ermine Street pays South Cambs interest. Can South Cambs vary that rate, and how do we model loan interest running in parallel with our income interest? Do the two always align? Is there a sort of if interest rates went up quite a lot on a loan, how would that feed back into Ermine Street?
Peter Maddox, did you want to come in on this?
So we have the ability to vary the rate. We obviously liaise with Ermine Street, and indeed we had a couple of years, which is about to end in a couple of weeks, at a slightly higher interest rate, given that interest rates in the general market have gone up quite significantly. Now we are expecting to see interest rates drop, albeit rather slower than we would have liked. So we're returning to the 3.85% interest for the next financial year. Was there a second part? Sorry.
Councillor Lehman?
Thank you. So we do have the ability to vary the interest rates depending on what the market's doing. Thank you. So I have another question. On paragraph 39, there's a statement which is, investment in the current portfolio provides return to the council and risk is mitigated by ensuring that all acquisitions and investments meet the agreed viability criteria. What is the viability criteria? Is that something that we could see?
Thank you. I can take that one. Over the period of time that we've acquired houses and blocks, etc., we run the purchase price through a viability model, and the viability is simply that we need to make a 5% return yield on the rent. So that's the total rent divided by 12, I think it is, which gives you a yield. And that 5% is quite high in the private sector. So, I mean, that is quite challenging. And we also, the model also takes into account the payback period of the loan to purchase acquisition. And we don't exceed 40 years on that. I mean, we can go up to 45 years, but that requires an executive director's approval. So it's basically a 5% yield and a 40%, a 40-year payback on the loan, and that's quite challenging in the private sector. So, I'm not saying here that the properties we have bought have met that criteria. So, I mean, they are performing well.
Councillor Lehman.
Thank you. That's really good to hear. I have two more questions. I'm sorry. I'm also a member of the Audit and Governance Committee, and there was a point raised on the audit report there about payment, about a lack of a payment schedule, and I wondered whether that had been addressed.
So Peter, did you want to come in on that, or?
Yeah, so this was raised because we hadn't got a formal agreement in place around the lending of money to Ermine Street. We now have that in place, so that's useful because obviously we've got an official document that demonstrates that what we're doing, and that is now in place. So that's good news.
Councillor Lehman.
Thank you. Sorry, my microphone was being silly. Thank you. That's really reassuring to hear that that's in place now. My final question is more of a policy question, really. Have we been able to use Ermine Street to provide social value to the residents of South Cambridgeshire? Are there properties that we've bought that would meet a particular need? For instance, you know, if we're aware that there's a shortage of 2-bedroom houses, or there's any, you know,
Councillor Batchelor, did you want to come in on that first?
Yes, certainly. Yes, that's made a significant contribution in that area, in that you know, they're a flexible landlord. There's plenty of landlords who wouldn't take people on who are on benefits, for example. But that does happen with Ermine Street. Equally, that they've made a very significant contribution in the housing side. You know, we've been fortunate to get significant grant support from the government for refugees and homeless people. More than 80 houses now we've managed to purchase through that way. And of course, the key to that is the expertise which is sitting in Ermine Street, who can go out and buy on the market for us, and you know, actually know what they're doing. So there's a significant contribution there. Equally, some of the houses are transferred to Shire homes, which again are used for temporary accommodation. So you know, it does make us a significant social contribution.
Thank you. Councillor Lehman.
thank you. That's really good to hear. Thank you.
Richard Stobart, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So one of the things I think we discussed around about 12 months ago was the loan, which I think was granted mid-year to Ermine Street Homes, for the additional 20 million for the purchase of single homes for single homeless. So far, I think paragraph 19, page 69, there have been 4 purchased and 1's in the machinery. That's quite small compared with the 20 million budget. And I wondered, well, were there difficulties with this? What's the experience? I mean, is there, for example, a rarity of such homes in the Greater Cambridge area, which is making it difficult? So just a status report would be helpful.
Thank you, Councillor Stobart. Councillor Batchelor, do you want to come in first?
Yeah, it's fine. 2 different matters here. The money I was talking about coming from the government is used for the single person accommodation. The 20 million is a commercial investment when they're going out to actually buy houses.
Yes,
for private rent from that.
Councillor Stobart?
Yeah, I was just commenting on paragraph 19, the 20 million was, yeah, for commercial purchases of homes which would be suitable for the single homeless. So it was really a question on that, paragraph 19. Yeah.
Yeah. Councillor Batchelor, happy you've addressed that yet?
I thought I had, actually.
Yeah, fine. Yeah. No, I'm happy. Did you want to come back, Councillor Stobart?
Well, I'm just wondering why it's such a slow start. Only 5 in total. You know, 300,000 each. This is much less than 20 million.
Duncan, do you want to come in?
Okay, so what happened here was that you agreed, or Cabinet agreed last year to lend Ermine Street an additional 20 million, of which, I don't know, 18 million of which were used for investment properties, leaving the residue of 2 million. Now, as John alluded to, there was some grant available from government for single homeless provision. So Urban Street took advantage by the council of using some of that grant funding to assist with the modelling that I referred to earlier about achieving the 5% and the 40-year payback. We had to use some of that money to top up the purchase price effectively, because within this district, as you probably realise from the business plan, it hasn't been viable to buy a lot of property within South Cambs because the margins don't work, because property prices are so high. So basically, the majority of the money was used for investment, and the residue that's why it's only 5, and the grant available only covered 5 properties because we had to use so much of it because the modelling doesn't work. So that makes sense. That's why it's only 5. And in terms of timescale, well, to be fair, we thought the timescale was pretty quick because you only agreed it last year, and we were able to purchase 5 within a year in this particular district, and 1-bed properties within South Cambs are pretty rare. So that's why it probably doesn't appear to be.
Councillor Stobart.
Chair, I think I understand.
Okay.
Paragraph 19 doesn't make it that clear.
Okay.
I have to say, and some clarification of that statement along the lines we've just heard would be helpful.
Okay, fine, noted.
Could I, second question, if that's
yeah,
okay?
Go ahead.
So it's about energy performance and EPC rating. So I think the report is quite clear that EPC rating, we buy above C, we may buy a D if it's suitable. I'm wondering just how the economics are working. So as houses are upgraded to higher EPC ratings, do we still continue to get that return on rent, even allowing for the investment? What's the experience? And well, I could continue, but maybe I just stop there. What's the experience with investment to get better energy efficiency? Do we still manage to get a good return on rent?
Duncan, I'll let you come in on that. Is that,
Yes, it's a good question. I mean, obviously with the portfolio of homes, there are some homes that require more investment and more repairs than others. And over the whole portfolio, that sort of equals itself out. So we don't, I mean, at the moment, we don't individually analyse each property to see whether or not we're still making the same return, because we may have spent a lot of money on it. And that's definitely the case for some of the lease property we have with the MOD, which frankly has cost us a lot of money because there's lots of component failures because of the age of them. So if we were to look at, I mean, there's a bit of work for the future, and that's associated with the asset management plan that's with the business plan now, is to probably do some work on the analysis of some of those homes. I mean, for example, what you've just said, is it worth a lot of investment in terms, to bring the EPC up to a level that's acceptable? Maybe not. So in which case the asset management strategy does have a disposal strategy within it, that we might be able to dispose of a property, then reinvest elsewhere.
Thank you. Councillor Stobart.
So in that setting, how does Ermine Street Homes strike the balance between that kind of experience gain from upgrading against the possible slightly unfavourable financial situation that might accrue from, a retrofit programme? So isn't there a balance to be struck there? Because, we're hoping Ermine Street Housing is working within the being green to our core policy of the council.
Yeah. Duncan?
Yeah, we are trying to align with the council policy, of course, in terms of being green to the core. In terms of the stock that we own, as I think alluded to in the report, we do tend to buy reasonably modern stock, and the EPCs are quite a decent rating. It's just that there might be enhanced insulation needed in lofts, might be new boilers. In some cases, some cavity wall. Even some of the new build that we bought, we found they didn't have cavity wall insulation. Mad, I know. And so, we've had to sort of expend a fair bit on cavity wall, but it's not breaking the bank. I mean, we have a budget, it's planned for over the life of the business plan, and basically we can afford it that's what this business plan is all about. Is this company viable going forward? And basically, this year's business plan has proved again that it is, and that includes spending on energy efficiency measures.
Thank you. Are you done, Councillor Stobart? Yeah.
I am, Chair. I could go in a little bit more detail, but I think that's fine.
Councillor Bradnam.
Thank you very much. It was just a request that can we have that clarification of paragraph 19 that Councillor Stobart asked for to go into the report that goes to Cabinet, please? Yeah?
Yeah, yeah, I'm happy with that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, lovely. Councillor Drew.
Thank you. Can I come back to something that Councillor Ellington raised at the start, but from a slightly different direction? As has been explained a number of times, obviously Erminstry operates as a private company fully owned by the council. And one of the things obviously we talk about is the business plan that's in place, and then we talk about the benefits that come to the council from Erminstry being able to operate in a different way to how the council can operate. And obviously you've referred there to the 5% return issue and how it kind of compares into the private market and such. So what we're talking about here is very much a commercial entity. It is entirely possible, and it is to be expected, that the governance situation that Erminstry operates under is going to completely have to change within the next few years. At this moment in time, Erminstry is a fully owned company in which South Cambs is the sole shareholder and which South Cambs appoints people to the board. Regardless of what model of local government reorganisation central government chooses to do, the situation in which Erminstry operates is going to change. There is no two ways about it. There is no way that central government is going to allow the creation of a unitary authority which ring-fences Erminstry solely for the benefit of one portion of a new unitary authority. I fundamentally cannot see how that will happen. That absolutely flies in the face of unitarisation for councils. The idea the government is going to say, I'm putting this council together, this council together, this council together. This council currently has this, which is a highly viable and positive financial entity. The residents of this part of the unitary authority can hold on to what they've got. You people over here, you can gain no benefit whatsoever from this. Fundamental part of the government's plan on unitarisation is the sharing of risk, the pooling of resources, it is the enlarging of councils. So therefore, coming back to the point that Erminstry is a commercial entity, what planning and actions is the board of Erminstry currently undertaking as a commercial entity for the fact that the ownership model, political model, whatever else that you will be operating under within the next 3 or so years is going to change? Because I would expect that the Erminstry board are absolutely having this at the forefront of what they are doing. And I'm going to say before you answer, I would be very surprised to hear that you haven't already met about it and considered it.
Councillor Batchelor.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Drew. We're back to the first question, aren't we? Which I'm afraid we don't know the answer to at this moment. I would probably agree with your assessment of what the likelihood is of the government's view of the world. But I see that our legal advisor is online. Perhaps I shouldn't say too much more without his comments.
If I may, Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Councillor Drew, it's a spot-on question. The problem is it's crystal ball gazing. At the moment, we are still somewhat in the dark about what will happen. But I think it's fair to say from talking to other colleagues on leadership team who've experienced unitarisation, I think it's a healthy assumption to say when the new unitary is assembled, it will find itself inheriting a very well-run business called Ermine Street. As to what that new unitary does with it in the future, your guess is as good as mine, but that's going to be the decision of the unitary. So I think the question you raise is valid about what are the board thinking about, but I think in big picture terms, I do rather feel that Ermine Street are doing the best they can, and when the new unitary is given birth, it will inherit it and it will make decisions as it sees appropriate.
Okay, can I come back into this? Just again to understand on this. So are we saying that we think it's okay that Ermine Street is doing no planning, no discussion, no forward thought for something that will have a profound impact on its business model in a few years' time, and that when the unitary is set up, it will solely be the responsibility of the unitary to come in to deal with that, and that we as South Cambs and as Ermine Street don't feel any responsibility to do any forward business planning on that. Is that what we're saying?
No.
Councillor Batchelor.
No, obviously we're looking at all these things, you know, not only Ermine Street, there's a huge upheaval about to come before us, and there's a massive planning operation which is going to be needed over the next couple of years. And, you know, Ermine Street will be one small part of that. You know, there's bigger issues yet that we know really nothing about. The consequences of, and until somebody tells us what the world's going to look like, you know, we can't do much about it at the moment.
I am satisfied with the assurance that there is a recognition that this is something that needs looking into and needs considering. I'm satisfied with that explanation. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Any other speakers on this issue, on this agenda item? I can't see anyone indicating to speak. So we will go back to page 67, where the recommendations are, 68, sorry. And I think we have undertaken to scrutinise the report that's in front of us and Appendix A, B. So I'm happy if everyone else is happy that we've done that and we've made some recommendations on that report. Lovely. Thank you. So we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is the work programme. The work programme is as written in the papers, and Councillor Drew and myself, Aaron, and we'll continue to have meetings going forward to populate that. And we have a triangulation meeting coming up as well with Cabinet members to look at things to go on that. Obviously, if members of this committee or any member of the council have things that they want to come onto the scrutiny agenda, please contact Councillor Drew or myself, and we will do our best to get those on in a timely fashion. Councillor Bradnam, sorry. Yeah.
Thank you. Just earlier on in the meeting, it was agreed that the blue bin recycling contracts from page 7 would come forward into the work programme.
Okay. Yeah.
Just to raise that again.
Noted. Yeah. Yeah. We'll make a note of that. Yeah. Councillor Drew.
Okay. I want to flag something that I think I would like scrutiny to consider, but as is often the case, it may well be the case that somebody points out this isn't a scrutiny matter. This is discussed about many times. At the recent full council meeting, we agreed the calendar and schedule of meetings for 2025-26. I note that the calendar of meetings and schedule of meetings for 2025-26 is similar to 24-25 and similar to 23-24, and as a council elected, first of all, in 22, is similar to that. I think that it is time for the council to consider whether or not the way that it arranges meetings and that it places the vast majority of meetings during the working day and places a small number of meetings in the evening, considering that part of the discussion at the full council meeting was about the way in which we attract people to be councillors and whether or not what we are doing is fully beneficial for the widest possible diversity of people to be councillors, I would like to propose that Scrutiny engages in a review and consideration following a report from officers of whether or not the way in which the council currently arranges its meeting schedule is meeting that aspiration. In the interest of personal explanation on this, I am somebody who works a 5-day-a-week full-time job where I leave my house at 6:30 in the morning and I arrive back generally in the evening at around sort of 6 o'clock or so. And therefore work time meetings during the working day are very difficult for me, as they are for a number of councillors. And therefore I wonder whether it's time for the council to consider adjusting its meeting schedule. And I'm wondering if that's a Scrutiny matter or if somebody would like to tell me it's a different committee's matter.
Any of the, Anne, do you want to come in on that at all? I think it would, my personal view is that it would be a reasonable thing for Scrutiny to look at, but please come in on that. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. And if John Murphy wants to come in as well, he may add something. Just to say, we did do a review of exactly that in 2022-23. And at that time, it was agreed to continue with our current way of working. However, of course, if Scrutiny want to review it again, 25, 26 and onwards, then that, of course, would be for committee to take a view.
Lovely, thank you. I think that answers the question. John, did you have anything else you want to add on that?
To me, I see no reason why you can't put it on your works programme.
Thank you.
I of course accept that the rest of the committee may well decide this isn't something they wish to look into and that it's simply something that I am raising, however I am raising the matter.
I think it's reasonable. Councillor Lehman.
Thank you. It's just to just note that we did mention that the KPI review would come to the June meeting. I don't know whether we need to add that on now in this work programme section.
Yeah, I think that was earlier in the meeting, but we'll note that and it will filter its way on.
Well, yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Stobart.
Chair, I just wanted to add my support. If Councillor Drew was worried about support, I'm happy to offer my
you've got a
support
second there. Lovely.
To the review of that. It is important to the life of the council.
Agreed. I'd be also happy to second it. Councillor Ellington.
As long as we don't have any more meetings that start at 5:30 and go on till 8 o'clock at night.
There'll be a lot more under these.
You don't know when to eat and when not to eat and all the rest of it. And I think they are appalling.
Noted. Councillor Bradnam.
Not to engage in the debate now, but I would just point out that it's quite difficult to juggle evening meetings when a lot of us have parish council meetings to attend, which often start at 7:30. So
thank you.
It's
so
just
that is,
juggling that as well is
debate,
part of our responsibility too.
Yeah. Okay. So lovely. Noted, and we'll have a look at that at bringing that forward at some point on the work programme. Anything else that councillors want to bring forward in the work programme? No. Okay. If you think of anything, email us at any time. We're happy to look at things. So that leads us on to agenda item 10, which is to note the date of the next meeting. Lovely. Okay, so I will close the meeting here. So when is the next meeting? When's the date of the next meeting?
Sorry, I put it on the chair's notes.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
It is, apologies. Yeah.
5th of June, there we go. So that brings us to a close, so we will come offline. Lovely, thank you.